the CZ-52. Let's check it out. Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic, has always been one of those countries that has thought outside the box, especially with their firearms manufacturing. They have a very rich tradition. CZ was founded in 1936. It was a relocation program to get a lot of the essential manufacturing into remote areas because of the threat of Nazi Germany. The CZ-52 was designed in 1952. Actually as a 9mm pistol, but because of political influence and pressure from the Soviet bloc, they ended up going with the 7.62 by 25 Tokarev. This is a very unique handgun. It is a surplus handgun. I found it on Gunbroker. When these were first coming into the country, they were so inexpensive. And I would always look at them and think, that's just a really funky looking firearm. But they gained a lot of popularity with shooters. And because of that, I've always wanted to try one out. I got on Gunbroker, I found one. It was over double the price that it cost when they first entered into the country. And while this looks a little bit awkward, at the range, it's a smooth shooter. Now the CZ-52 is definitely a very unusual looking firearm. These of course were around the 1950s. From 52 to 54, there were over 200,000 made. This particular model is designated right here on the frame, 53 for 1953. But if you look, it's a very clean design. I mean, there is very little that comes outside of this firearm. It shoots the 7.62 by 25 Tokarev, which was a very popular Russian caliber for a long time. And this is a neck down cartridge. These are high in velocity. In fact, these run up to 1,800 feet per second. This was also designed for machine guns. And then you can have velocities all the way down to 1,300 feet per second. Here we have some military surplus ammunition. Sometimes these can be hit or miss as far as reliability. We have some factory brass ammunition, and then we have some steel-cased ammunition. I believe this is Red Army Standard, and this is Cellular and Bullet. And I think also Privy Partisan makes some, and Fiocchi. So there's a number of different choices of ammunition out on the market. But if you're going to shoot the surplus, typically it is corrosive, so you're going to need to make sure you clean your firearm. Now let's make sure the gun is unloaded. We're going to drop our magazine. There's a little heel magazine release right here. You just pop it, and you can pull your magazine right out. It does have an 8-round plus 1 magazine. And then we're going to check the chamber, and the gun is empty. One thing you don't want to do a lot is dry fire the handgun, because they can have brittle firing pins in here. It has something to do a lot with the heat treating. But one thing that is different about this pistol, and a lot of people don't know, is you see this frame safety, and so you can just bring it down for fire, push it back up for safe, and then if you push it on up, it's a decocker. Now, again, one warning is sometimes the mechanism can be worn, and so you don't want to necessarily rely on the decocker. But it is a single action pistol, so when I pull the trigger, I get no action. But when I rack the slide and enter a round, I'm able to fire that first round, you know, just like any other single action handgun. We're going to drop our safety. We're going to drop this down just to be on the safe side. The finish here is like a gray oxide or a parkerized finish, and that is the original guns. They were in this finish. If you find one with a black slide, even though it's sort of parkerized, but it's a really dark color, those are Arsenal refinished. And so it does lessen the value a little bit, but it does make for a nice looking firearm. Cocking serrations right here. They're easy to grab. One thing about this handgun in particular is that it does have a high bore axis. And you'll notice, and that's one of the things when shooting this is because of the high bore axis, there's a little bit more felt recoil. And when you're talking about the 7.62 by 2.5 Tokarev, it is a pretty hot round. That caliber was also designed for a number of machine guns. And then you get down all the way to about 1,300 feet per second. The bullet weight's typically about 85 grains. They served in the Czechoslovakian military for over 30 years. And it's the counterpart to the Tokarev, which most of the Eastern Bloc countries use the Tokarev. In fact, I believe this is a Serbian Tokarev, and it is in 7.62 by 2.5 as well. But to me, this is more of a crude firearm than the CZ-52. It's a much more elegant handgun. And the CZ-52 was replaced by the CZ-82. This is in 9mm Makarov, which most of the Eastern Bloc countries went to. Now, they also made a 380 version in this as well, but the Makarov version has a little more ballistic capability. And it is a double single action, and it does have a double stack magazine. So these are really nice pistols if you can find them. The barrel is 4.7 inches in length. It does have just rudimentary combat style sights, and they're fairly accurate. Commander hammer. It does have Bakelite grips, and then you have this small little clip that holds these grips into place. You can pull these up and it'll pop right out. In fact, here's the clip. You just pull it, it pops off, and then your grips come off. It is really simple. Then just pop the grips back on, take the clip, and just snap it back into place. One thing that helps with the recoil is the grip is fairly wide. So while it's still a narrow feeling handgun, it gives you a good solid grip, which really helps with the felt recoil. But one thing you'll notice is there is no slide stop. And that's one thing when you pull the handgun back like this, you have to remove the magazine every time. But once you get used to it, it's not really a big deal. But we have to remove that magazine to be able to pull the slide back and to drop it. Now, one very unique feature about the CZ-52 is that it has a roller-locked short recoil operated system. And that is very unusual in a handgun. And we'll take a look at that when we break it down, but it really makes this a very smooth action, and two, it allows it to handle those more higher velocity rounds. Now, I don't know of any 7.62 by 2.5 snap caps, so I used a 9mm the first time, and I'm just going to drop it down into the chamber. And this is to help the firing pin from having any kind of issues. And we're going to test the trigger control. Trigger pull action, a little bit of take up, and then we have a break. There's a little bit of resistance coming in, but not too bad. Reset right there. Let's check the trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. 5 pounds, 9.7 ounces. 5 pounds, 7.6 ounces. Now, when reinserting your magazine, you need to push back on that mag release, get a good firm back push, and then it'll slide right in. All right, we're using some Red Army Standard 7.62 by 25 Tokarev. I think I picked this up at Palmetto State Armory, but that's one of the things about this pistol is you can get this ammunition. There's current ammunition made, and it is steel cased, but we're going to check it out. Now, 7.62 by 2.5 Tokarev is a fairly hot round. It's a neck down case, typically about 85 grain, moving at anywhere from 1,300 to 1,800 feet per second. When you compare that to a 9mm, which is around 115 grain full metal jacket, and then you're moving it anywhere from 1,100 to about 1,400 feet per second. This is definitely a hotter round. But one of the things about the all steel frame, it also counteracts some of the felt recoil, but it is still somewhat snappy. With the higher bore axis, you did feel a little bit more of the slide coming back, and again, it attributed to the muzzle flip. But overall, it was a very smooth shooting handgun. When it comes to surplus firearms, they can have some issues. One thing that we experienced was we never had the slide to lock back after shooting the last round. Now, I can pull the slide back and it'll lock in the rear position, no problem. But the power of those rounds were not quite getting it back to lock. And honestly, that's something that I can deal with. That thin grip, you're able to get a good solid hold on it, and I'll tell you, it's just a lot of fun. The velocities are really high, and it really makes it a fun shooting handgun. Now to break the pistol down, drop our magazine, check to make sure the gun is unloaded. Now we're going to want to drop our hammer to disassemble. And right here you have these little takedown tabs on either side, which is definitely Czech. I mean, they always have these ribs or ridges in a lot of their firearms. You just take and pull it down and watch the slide. See how it comes out? And you don't pull it all the way, you just pull it a little bit and then it pops off. Now here is the roller locked system, and you have your two rollers here, your barrel and recoil spring, and it allows for a very stable system. You can take the lip of your magazine, push it, and watch those rollers. They just unlock. In fact, if you get it on this lip, you can see how they completely come loose. And it's just this little surface area right here that they stay locked up in. So we just pull it, and that does it. Now, disassembly of this part is a little bit tricky, but we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to pull this all the way down, and you release your rollers, and then just pull up. And then that releases the barrel. It also releases the recoil spring. Now here you can see the rollers right here. One thing about these rollers too is sometimes the heat treating is not the best, and it can cause some damage to your frame and to this and to the rollers. So it's one of the things you want to just watch. In fact, if you look on the frame, you can see where the rollers have been hitting the bottom of the frame, and it is causing a little bit of damage. But right here on this bar is where the roller stops. So when it hits, it stops against the bottom here on this section right here. And so this allows for a good solid stop, and yet it puts it right in place for the next round. It's a single action pistol, so it's a very simple design, as you can see. Some weight savings right here. One thing you'll notice is you pull down on the tabs. Here's your locking block here, and it just pulls it right out of the way. For reassembly, just take your recoil spring, put it back into place, get it down into the slide. Now one thing you're going to want to do is to get that barrel back through the front of the slide, just like this. So we're going to take our magazine, pull back on that area, drop it all the way down, and then release it, and it pops right back into these different areas. The big trick to this is to get it down far enough to where it sets on the bottom of the slide to allow it. When it comes to reassembly, make sure that your hammer is in the down position. We're just going to put it onto the frame like this, and then we're done. I mean, it's a really simple way to put the slide back on, whereas the rollers, it's a little bit of a trick, but it definitely works. But it's not too difficult once you get used to it. Now, when the CZ-52 was first coming into the country, they were running around $200 or less. Surplus ammunition was super cheap. Since that time, the demand for these has really grown, and these are typically running between $300 and $400 and up, just according to where you're finding it. Again, I found this on Gunbroker.com. I paid $350 for it, and I think it's just a great iconic piece, and a lot of designs that are very unusual, smooth shooter, and man, what a potent round. Guys, there's just something about getting a military surplus firearm out to the range. It just has a lot of soul to it, a lot of history. A lot of the Eastern Bloc firearms have some unique calibers, but there's a number of companies that are making ammunition for most of them. And guys, this little CZ-52 with the 7.62 by 2.5 Tokarev, I mean, it is a hot little firearm to shoot. Plus, honestly, it looks like something out of Buck Rogers. Guys, if you depend on a firearm for self-defense, whether concealed carry or even home defense, having some kind of legal protection is vital. I'm a member of the USCCA. I've been a member for the past 3 years, and it is just peace of mind. You know that someone has your back if you ever get yourself in a tough situation where you have to draw your firearm. If you are carrying concealed, you should definitely have some kind of legal protection. Now, I'll have a link down below in the description to the USCCA membership page. It is an affiliate link, and I know that if anything ever goes down, I have a friend with USCCA. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. wanted one ever since. Okay. You know, when you have your basic surplus. Okay. One thing about Czechoslovakia, or what is now the CZ Republic, the CZ Republic, in the face of the Czech.
Shut it down and it ain't gon' stop. Only thing I fear is God and he on my side. That's the confidence.